Hi, Tatyana. Welcome to the
Hi.
Lumiere Torchbearer Thursday. For our audiences watching from wherever you are, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Dr. Tatyana Dias has been someone inspired by, an occurrence in her life which has sort of shaped and I think formed a purpose of all of the things she's done, be it her education or be it now the Veruschka Foundation. I am delighted to have a conversation with you, Dr. Tatyana Dias, co-founder of the Veruschka Foundation, who is going to tell us about her journey from becoming a neurobiologist, going to the UK, doing some fabulous work in stem cells, and then coming back to form and found the social enterprise along with her parents in the memory of her sister who had, developmental disabilities. So that's what we're going to be talking about and how she has navigated her experiences to find purpose and what she does to touch so many lives and the families of these children. So Tatyana, thank you very, very much for being our guest today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. And thank you for taking the time to listen to what we do. Thank you to Deepa and to Milan for giving us the opportunity to tell people about our work and to raise awareness for our cause. Right at the outset, I would also like to say thanks to the Lumiere Business Solutions team. They have been they're very talented, they're warm and very professional sort of team that you have together. So thank you so much for giving us this opportunity. It's an honor to be here.
Tatyana and Veruschka are very Russian sounding names. Is there a connection?
Yes. So my mom and dad, when they were studying in St. Xaviers College way back when, during their graduation, they were big fans of Russian authors. And both of our names kind of stemmed from that interest. Leo Tolstoy and all the authors that they were exposed to at the time. And so that's how our names came in.
And Veruschka was born in which year?
She was born in 1988, and she was born at a time when actually it was, India was in a very an interesting phase. A lot of interesting things were happening around, but things like developmental disabilities, there was no real knowledge of that at the time.
How did your parents find out that, she was different?
So as far as we know, Veruschka my mom had a normal delivery in terms of what we know normal is. And she was pretty much, showed the normal signs that the doctors, she cried when she was taken out, all the sort of the usual signs that the doctors and the nurses look for at the clinic. But then what happened was 11 days after we brought her home, she had a very high fever, and in fact it was raining continuously in Mumbai for like I think around 4 to 5 days straight, and she developed a fever. She then developed meningitis. She had blood poisoning. And so when she was only that sort of at that very tender age, she was literally fighting for her life, and she had around 150 odd injections. She had to go through a lumbar puncture, and for my mom and dad both, it was the hardest experience for them to go through this, especially for my mom. As you can imagine, she had just given birth and she didn't know what was going on, and she was, she had to run to the doctors and plead to them and say, please save my child, because she never knew, what was happening. I mean, obviously they kept her informed, but so Veruschka really was saved at Sion Hospital. There's Dr. Armida Fernandez, who actually runs a very famous foundation now in Mumbai. She was instrumental. She was the dean at the time. And she runs Sneha at the moment, and she was the one that was instrumental in making sure Veruschka crossed that hurdle. When Veruschka was going to Xaviers school, which is based in Shuri, Xaviers has a lovely center called the Sairam Autism Center. Veruschka was one of the first four students of that center. And that was where my parents found out that she had something called autism. And they didn't know. She was diagnosed at the age of 8. She was non-verbal till the age of 4. And she didn't say her first words. She sang her first words. We were incidentally in Wellington at the time. We had gone on a pilgrimage, and that was where she sang her words. And it was a sort of a miraculous event for us as a family.
So from 8 until her lifespan was 27 years.
That's right.
And what's the age difference between you and her?
We have an age difference of 4 years.
4
so I was
years.
born in 84, yeah.
So you were, for you, how was it to have an older sister who was different, and how did that affect your relationship and your own growing up?
So she was younger, and so she's 4 years younger to me. And for me, it was about being an older sister. I think that I had to grow up pretty quickly, and somehow I seeing my parents go through the challenges, and have both my parents had to work. The expenses were quite high, taking Veruschka to doctors. Veruschka was on medications. She ended up having 90% brain damage, and as a result she had epilepsy and a lot of other associated conditions. And because of that, seeing my parents, it was very important that I was there along with them as far as I could. I always knew that there was something different about her, but I didn't quite fully understand what it was till I fully grew up. I think the most important thing being a sibling is that overprotectiveness that comes in. And I feel like being her older sister, I had to always be there. She was literally like my parents' child, but she was also like a baby to me, and she was like a child that never grew up. Her physical age would have, was 26, 27 years old, but she had the mental age of that of a 5-year-old. So all of her care was something that we had to do 24/7.
You chose to do science and you wanted to find something of a cure to help Veruschka. Was that the underpinnings of your move towards the sciences, Tatyana?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, it was interesting because my mom was a teacher at the time, and my dad was working for SR. He was sort of into HR, and when I finished school, it was very odd that there were several people who told me when I said I want to do science. Look at your family background. You have a sister like Veruschka. Why do you want to do science? It's useless. I mean, you should just do something which will ultimately, what are you going to do with all that? You will have to look after her, and help your parents. And something about that stuck with me, and I felt like I can't imagine anybody having to listen to this when they are when they are in that kind of position. And finding a cure would probably mean that somebody would not be in this scenario, would not stand in these shoes. And I was always very interested in how the brain works, and Veruschka's brain was so different to mine. She was so musically inclined. She was so talented. And I used to always wonder how she could pick up a tune so fast. Like, she would just listen to it and we would sort of sing it again and again, and that's it. She already got it. Whereas for me, I would have to listen to it a few more times, to get it. And she had that, ability. She was quite intelligent. And so I always wanted to know why that was different. So I ended up going to St. Xaviers College and, I picked science. I went to Xaviers. I did my BSc in Life Sciences and Biochemistry. And then one thing led to the other, and I ended up going to the UK for my master's. and then my doctorate, and then my postdoc at Cambridge University. So I was in Edinburgh University for 7 years, and then my doctorate at Cambridge. And I don't know how 11 years passed by. And it was quite something that, I basically studied regeneration of the nervous system. How can we repair our nervous system? And I went from working on zebrafish to working with mice, and then finally to working with human stem cells, where we were growing little mini brains in a dish, trying to understand how we could model disease in a dish, and whether there were any ways that we could identify any drugs that would help find a cure for conditions like autism and Down syndrome.
What was that turning point for you when you decided that I have to do something different from the sciences?
The turning point was, I think, 4 years before Veruschka passed away. It was around 2012 when I was completing my doctorate. It was my final year. And I have to say a really big thank you to my PhD mentors, because without them, I don't think I would have had this title. I don't think I would have had that degree, because Veruschka was not well. My parents were, they were struggling to find a carer for her. There were a lot of challenges. My mom has been the one that's been with her throughout her life, actually. My dad ended up spending 10 years in the state of Gujarat. I was away for 11 years. And so, it was quite heavy on my mom. My mom then went from being a teacher to being a principal. And something changed within the family. We all were holding these high profile positions. I was completing my doctorate, and somebody had to decide what to do. And, to ensure that there was a continuation where Veruschka was being cared for. So I took a break of a month from my doctorate, and I came back to India. And I didn't really think I would go back to completing that degree, because I needed to ensure my parents were fine, and I also needed to see that my sister was okay. And thankfully, we were able to find someone. And with the support of my mentors, I went back and I completed my degree. But that sort of gave me, a kind of a glimpse into what the future was going to hold. That was the reason for giving you this sort of telling you this, about this particular phase, this chapter of our lives, because the 4 years after that, Veruschka was actually unwell, and I didn't want to come back to India and, sort of keep her in this kind of position here, because vocational services for adults with developmental disabilities is very difficult. And at that time, it was quite challenging. There weren't very many centers that were offering options for the differently abled. There are many wonderful schools and, that sort of cater to children and adults, probably up till the age of around 21, 22, 23, depends on the school. It's pretty diverse and varied. But beyond that, they usually end up just being homebound. And that's what happened with Veruschka. She went to school for 16 years, and then that's it. She was at home. And it was up to my parents to, get teachers to come home and teach her, all sorts of, whether it was occupational therapy or speech therapy, or whether it was even, anything to do with her sort of future planning, had to be done within the confines of the home. And I was happy with the position I was at in the UK, and UK had become a second home to me. And I wanted to take my mom and dad away. I felt they'd kind of had a tough life as it was, and I didn't want to put all of them through that. And the plan was to take Veruschka away from this. But the same month as where we filed her papers for me to take her to the UK, she passed away. And then all the plans we had in place for her went completely out of the window. And it was the darkest year of our lives. It was like the sun was taken away. And I'm not sure it was clinical depression, but it was definitely a complete loss in identity, for my dad, for me, thankfully for my mum. She was principal of St. Xavier's High School, and so she was very busy, with her work, and I think that kept her going. Thankfully, that was there for her. I was transitioning, and my dad had, he had finished his sort of finished his work at SR, and he was hoping to take Veruschka to a vocational setup. We planned it all out. She was going to go to a setup for some time. In the meantime, we would, put in start the process to take her away from here. And it didn't work out. And after that, I had to seriously think, what do I do? I couldn't go back to science. I don't know. Somehow it sounds very cliched, but Veruschka was the inspiration for me to get into it. And with her not there, it didn't make any sense. I felt it was like a drop in the ocean effect. It was so naive, thinking that we're going to find one drug and that's going to cure, autism. And somehow I felt I could not lose any more time. I needed to help somebody, before I am no more as well. And we as a family needed to tell other people like us who belong to our tribe that, it is okay. And, these are the mistakes we made, and don't do that. And that's how the foundation was born. That's how I came back to India after more than a decade. And it was the brainchild of my dad to start the foundation, and that's what I've taken forward. And today it is me and my husband, who both of us have given up our careers in science and advertising respectively, and with the help of my dad and now even my mom, who are our directors, collectively we run this foundation.
Amazing. So so tell us a little bit about the foundation and what it's been like from when you started, now the lockdown, and what the future holds for the foundation and your work, and
Yeah.
how you've sort of navigated finding like-minded, maybe teachers, other parents. How did you go about it? It'll be very useful to know.
Sure. So when we set up Veruschka Foundation, like I mentioned, there are some things obviously changed a lot after coming back after more than a decade. Awareness was better. There were many more special schools and centers that were catering to those who had developmental disabilities, and now there were some vocational setups. So it was actually we were sort of in a very good space in 2016. So we felt that looking around at what was going on, I spent 3 months in India in 2015, and I don't know whether you want to call it market research, but I did several visits, and I wanted to see what was really the need. What do parents want? Where's there, a gap? And what we found is that there was some amazing work being done, but they were not able to take it up a notch because of funding restrictions, because of space restrictions, because of the fact that they mainly work with children, and that transition from being a child to the teenage years to being an adult is where there was a miss. And so we wanted Veruschka Foundation to be one where we ran activities every couple of months, which would serve as a platform for the schools to showcase their training, for the individuals to showcase their talents, and to show Mumbai and India as a whole that we are different, not less. And that was a saying said by Temple Grandin, who's a very famous agricultural scientist who is on the autistic spectrum. And it is something that we use in every hashtag and in literally in every activity we do. It's very important to show that my bachus are sorry, I call all our kids my bachus. They are all adults above the age of 14, but and they're very sort of strong-willed, confident young people. But for me, they are like children, and they're very close to my heart, and that's why the word bachu just comes naturally. So all of our bachus need to have the opportunity to live independently, to earn a living, to have an identity. I spoke about losing my own identity. And even though I am a neurobiologist and I regained that identity back, that happened because of the foundation. And I wanted our bachus to have that. I wanted families like my family to know that they were not alone and that they could actually navigate this process. I don't like to actually say that, one individual is more severely affected than the other, but yes, some individuals have more challenges than the others. And Veruschka definitely was more challenging in terms of her behavioral traits, compared to the others. She was hyperactive, and there were all these challenges. And because of that, we wanted the foundation to showcase that despite there being these differences, why are we okay having labels? If you and I can have, idli sambar for breakfast one day, and we can have a poi with chai the next day, and we can have, something as simple as, an omelette the next day. If we are okay having breakfast from different parts of our country, then I think it is okay to accept somebody whose brain works differently to us. It's just down to the wiring. And Veruschka Foundation wanted to do that. So we launched the foundation with the Cook for Change Challenge. It's a very popular cookery competition in Mumbai. We've actually held 2 successful editions of it, where several special schools and centers have participated in this competition. We give cash prizes, and I will never forget this particular incident that happened when we launched the foundation. One individual who has Down syndrome, entered the sort of the venue, and I went to introduce myself. I was standing at the entrance saying hello to everyone, and I said, "Hi, my name is Tatyana. Welcome to Cook for Change." And she gave her name, and she said, "I'm here to win." And that has stayed with
Oh.
me forever. I always remember this. Every single day, whenever we get up and come to work, it's because of that we do what we do. They need a voice, and it was important to give them that. It was important to ensure that happened. And from Cook for Change, we ran an activity called Growing Change, where we taught our special individuals as well as their families and vocational centers and schools, how do you go from a seed to a plant, and what do you do with those plants? You can make a smoothie, you can make a salad. The reason why this was important is because many of our kids are on several types of medications, and choosing a healthy lifestyle is very important, but it doesn't come naturally. And as we were doing all of this, we realized that our bachus are all foodies. Veruschka herself was a foodie. She loved to help in the kitchen. She was quite adept. She would shell peas, and my mom and dad actually got a teacher to do that. She would shell peas, she would make sandwiches, and she loved eating eating what she prepared. And we noticed that being done in several schools, they would teach them how to make sandwiches, butter breads, make nimbu pani. But they were not able to take it up a notch. And that is where we felt maybe we could do something. And so we set up a Culinaris cookery course. It is what it was called in 2017. We started with 9 students. We went to 22. We were featured on the cover page of the Midday. It was a lovely thing for the parents to know that there was a vocational option for their adults. Um, but it was not very good for me and the foundation, because my phone didn't stop ringing for almost 9 months later from all over India to sort of say, can you do this? Can you come here? Can you come to Indore? Can you come to Delhi? Can you come to Bangalore? And it was scary because I realized that the need was a lot, and I didn't know how we were going to provide for so many people. And so it was very important for us to help in that way. And so Veruschka Foundation went from bringing NGOs and schools and individuals and families together to entering skill development. And in 2019, we decided to set up India's first culinary institute for the differently abled, which is called Culinaris Cookery Institute. This was the brainchild of my husband, and it was the foresight of my father to include something like this in our memorandum. When we set it up in 2016, we never thought it would happen, but it did. And so in our first year in 2019, we impacted 56 students across Goregaon, Vashi, and Thane. And in total, in the last, since 2017, we've impacted over 100 individuals in person. The pandemic changed everything. We had to move from in-person, sort of sessions to a digital platform. And by doing that, we were able to impact 400 families, which were across the country, just because of the power of technology. And so we were very happy that happened, because we were able to take it one step higher. So we help our students to achieve independence at home and in their lives. We do this along with the support of their families. A family member, a supporter, is always present as part of our sessions. We help them to start and scale their own entrepreneurial culinary journeys. One of our students went back to her hometown, which is just outside of Pune, and she set up a little tea stall at an SD stand where she makes, things that we taught her in the course.
Wow.
Um, yeah. And then finally, we, also help them in placements in mainstream employment. We have one of our boys, Gaurav Mistry, who is working with Chef Ranveer Brar at his studio kitchen in Andheri West.
Oh, wow.
And the pandemic also gave us a chance to assess, our own ideas as per our own employment initiative, and that's what we also launched last year. It's called A Bite Better. We are starting a new Instagram handle for that in a few days' time. We make a whole range of gluten-free and nutritious and healthy products. The reason for doing this was predominantly to help my girls. The food industry is heavily male dominated, and we wanted our girls to have a safe and a secure future. And the pandemic, created an upheaval for everybody. We ourselves had to pivot. We had to think about how we were going to take things forward, and we felt that we couldn't leave our students stranded, waiting for the food industry to stand back up again. Obviously, the food industry has been incredible in supporting COVID relief work, and we are so happy that we were part of a few initiatives on that front. But we needed to ensure that we were doing something of our own. And so, one idea was to help our students, to have that future, and it was also going to help the foundation enter a space where we were working towards sustainability, because if anything, we learned that sustainability is key. We needed to ensure that the general funding streams that an NGO does, the classical funding through donations, whether it is through individuals or CSR or HNIs, was obviously redirected because of COVID, and rightly so, because that was needed. But we needed to ensure that there was something that we needed to do, and for us, having a separate revenue stream was very necessary.
Yeah.
This was one sort of area that we entered into. And like I said, several individuals, the pandemic has also made us realize the importance of building relationships and maintaining them. And I mean, a classic example is us sitting right here. I mean, you've decided to do exactly this, of telling people about other people like us. But in doing that, you yourself have contributed to, helping spread the word. And I think that's what's been truly amazing. The pandemic has caused so much of chaos, but it's resulted in things that would have probably never happened before. And so people, professionals have extended their support. We've been part of mentoring, for organizations like us that are going from being an NGO to having now a little bit of a business angle and a proper social enterprise. And we would love to have more volunteers, whether they are in the culinary space or whether they can, help us in terms of capacity development, come and teach our bachus, about communication and social skills and money. They can't, they find it difficult to understand money. And then obviously, the $1 million question for all NGOs and is always a constant is money. Having donations come in is helps us to continue doing what we're doing. And as far as possible, if we can get that kind of support, it would be incredible.
Yeah, yeah. Tatyana, what an amazing story. So Manjushri Patil, who was also our torchbearer, is watching this show, and she writes, what an inspiring journey, Tatyana. She herself has been a pioneer in inclusive education, and I'd be delighted to introduce the two of you. So she says, you're a real life angel. I completely second that. And we will shortly exchange numbers. Thank you so much for watching, Manjushri Patil. Really, it's an
Thank
honor.
you. Thank you.
Tatyana, everything that you've said, I think has struck a chord for those who are watching live. For those who wonder, how they're going to manage with somebody that they are a caregiver to in the house. There are, good days and bad days, and it could be in the form of a child, it could be an elder, it could be, someone who is not, quite there with capabilities and the ability to sort of think logically and rationally. And the whole notion of patience, just patience, faith, persevering, and all coming from a place of non-judgmental acceptance and love. I think that's
Absolutely.
really been the whole magic food that possibly kept that, Veruschka going all these years. And I'm sure her singing was, in a sense, the that whatever, that angel in her which was expressing herself, and possibly reaching out to each one of you through her music and her singing. And I'm sure that was, you know a miracle,
Yeah.
like you mentioned. I can only wish you the very best in what you do, and I hope the Torchbearers uh, platform will help you in some way connect with more like-minded people and the community who wants to do their bit, either directly or indirectly, in supporting this, whether it's individuals, whether it's corporates. It is people who are endowed with skills in the culinary space, moms who have children, and dads who have children with disabilities, to see find hope, and that you can really take something which is a huge disadvantage and turn it to a purpose, just like Dr. Tatyana Dias did for herself. And I'm sure nothing was wasted, not the zebra fish and whatever. I'm sure everybody taught you something. And
Absolutely.
Dr. Veena Shaktivel, who's also been our torchbearer, who's watching, says, and very interesting talk and incredible work.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Again, very happy to connect the two of you. She is again a pioneering woman and has done amazing work. So thank you so much. Thank you for watching. We could go on and on, but yes, we are actually a little ahead, overshot our event. But thank you so much for coming, Dr. Tatyana Dias, co-founder Veruschka Foundation, and more power to you, your family, and all of the work that you do and your team. And of course, your bachus.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very, very much for having me. It was an absolute pleasure and honor. And more power to you and your organization for giving people a chance to tell others about their work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Tatiana.
Bye.
Bye.